All right, everybody, got the old Bob Barker mic out here, and I am putting a bunch of my stuff on this trailer. I'm turning this into a welding trailer because I have a service truck that's getting up there in age. I decided I'm going to go from 2 trucks to just 1, so that means all my stuff has to go on a trailer. Anyway, I'm moving this stuff around, and I'm thinking about some of the adventures I've had with some of these tools, some of the jobs I've done with them, and I thought I'd make you guys a quick little video here because a lot of people are always asking me to talk about a little bit more on the business side of welding. So these are some of my stories. Let me preface this by saying I'm trying to make this video in an educational sense. I don't mean to sound judgmental or arrogant or whatever, but there are some stories and individuals in this who I won't name, but I will speak very poorly of based on my experiences with them. And I'm doing this to help you guys who are thinking about getting into welding because you can learn from these experiences and hopefully save yourself the headaches that I've had. The other thing is, in another one of my videos, I talked about minimums a little bit, and I heard from people who were like, I can't believe you charge, $250 to work on anything. Oh, it's so arrogant. You think, man, you touch this thing one time, it's worth, if it's mobile, $450. What pretty much all of these people have in common, and this goes with a lot of people who will sort of heckle you and hassle you over your minimum charges as well. These people aren't actually in business for themselves, and a lot of them have never even worked in like any type of service industry or even retail type stuff where you learn a lot about, how much it really costs you just to go through day-to-day operations and, and deal with such things. So the first thing I will tell you guys, experience-wise, that I've learned kind of the hard way is come up with a minimum and stick to it and make no exceptions. This is some of the best advice I could give to someone. I'll tell you guys, my minimum here at the shop is $250, and honestly, if it's someone I haven't worked with before, I'm fairly busy, there's only so many hours in the day, I'll probably turn away a lot of, $250 jobs. But on my flyers and stuff, that's what it says. It's $250 shop minimum, $450 mobile minimum. Now you say, why is this? The reason why this is because of what's commonly referred to as the cost of acquisition of a customer. If you are a company who makes widgets, whatever, electronics, car parts, clothing, cell phones, you name it, there is a cost to acquire any customer, any new customer who buys one of your products. Now, in these cases, this cost is going to be promotional stuff, marketing, TV advertisements, that sort of thing, and this is something which they sort of expect and divide out amongst the cost of their products. For you, if you're looking to get into mobile welding, and I'm sure probably most of this carries over to about any other trade as well, your cost of acquisition of a customer is primarily time. All right, let me start with the opposite of this. A few weeks ago, I made a video about this. Some of you guys remember it. One of my most regular customers, a local machine shop, needs me to do some welding on a cast aluminum intake manifold. Guy just texts me. He straight up leaves it on my front door. I just weld it, text him again. We get it back to him. One of the smoothest transactions I've ever had. I bet my time for dealing with him on this for that job, 5 to 10 minutes at absolute most. Now, the flip side of that is if somebody calls me and they're like, hey, we do commercial construction, we're going to put up a strip mall or something, we need to find somebody to come out here and weld some stuff. Can you do this? Oh, yeah, I can totally do that. And I have to talk to them, and I'm like, okay, well, what the heck do you want? Send me some pictures or some blueprints or something through an email, and I'll take a look at it, make sure I can do all this. All of this stuff adds up. This is time which you're spending. And this is time which generally you don't get paid for. In the case of the construction customers I have, you don't get, like I said, you don't get paid for this. You just get the job. And so you kind of have to divide out the cost of spending 2-3 hours of your time talking to them, greeting them, perhaps going over and looking at whatever they want. You just kind of have to divide this out into your work, and that's sort of expected. That's like, think about if you're going to hire an electrician to put a new light on your building or something, you call them, you don't expect them to charge you for this phone call. You just expect to come out and pay them to do the job. The point is, like I said, you generally don't get much out of this time. Therefore, it's best if you can find customers. This is my default advice for anybody thinking about getting into welding commercially. Find customers who aren't goofs, who do not attempt to screw you, who pay their bills, who understand what things cost, and generally just don't waste your time and cause you headaches, and do whatever you can to further your relationship with them and keep it going and keep it strong, because they're good to have. When they call you, they already know you, so there's no real cost in acquiring this job. Time-wise, they just say, look, we need you to come out, weld this stuff. All right, I'll be there at this time. 10 days later, you're going to get a check in the mail, or 30 or 90 or 3 or whatever, and it's a pretty smooth process. This is the goal. Now, another word on minimums. Like I said, no exceptions. You know, somebody I talked about, the last time I talked about minimum, somebody said, because I was discussing how I took down my welding sign because I got tired of people stopping by. You know, like I said, I can swear to you guys, everybody in North Texas who wants a different muffler put on their car must have stopped by here and asked, you know, how much to do this. This guy put out a sign that says welding, and then right below it, estimates $50, labor however much an hour, no exceptions, and that got rid of all the tire kickers, so to speak. Generally, I find there's two types of people who will have a problem with your minimums. There's the people who mean well, mean no harm, and just don't understand why it costs, in my case, $450 for me to drive out anywhere and do anything. The reason for this, in case you guys are wondering, and in case you're not and you're thinking about getting into this is what you need to prepare for, is in order to be able to do this job, you have overcome quite the barrier to entry. The average person walking down the street is not capable of driving out to a construction site or a farmer's field or a factory or whatever, you name it, and welding their stuff properly and getting this done in a smooth, timely, efficient manner. The reason for this is they have not overcome the barrier to entry to be able to do this, which you have. Now, what is this barrier to entry? This is, in my case, it was trade school. In your case, it might be an apprenticeship where you didn't really pay, you know, for the trade school. You paid through your own time doing craptacular work, sweeping floors, grinding stuff, whatever, helping out so you could learn stuff. This is very valuable. You overcame that. You got an education. That's a barrier to entry. You bought a lot of friggin' stuff. This trailer here, this is fairly modest for mobile work standards, I would say. I've seen a lot more. I've seen people with, like, you know, a 20-foot enclosed trailer that probably has as much stuff in there as my actual shop does. This is on the low end of the spectrum, and still, I'd say the replacement value of everything on this trailer included, probably pushing 30 grand, including the specialty equipment and the drilling stuff and whatnot in those front toolboxes. This adds up very quickly, especially if you have a shop. You know, figure in an AC/DC TIG welder, plasma cutters, fume extractor, all sorts of hand tools, all this stuff. You've acquired this, and this is worth money. This is why you can charge them $450 in my case to drive out and weld their stuff, and the average person has no ability whatsoever to drive out there and weld it at all for any period, for any amount of money. So, like I said, you overcame this, and a lot of the people who will have a problem with your minimum are people who have not had to overcome this in anything, because nothing against them, perhaps they've never felt the call to run a business or whatever, but let's say they have a day job somewhere, they make $8, $10, $14, $20, $25 an hour or whatever. So you figure somebody makes, friggin', 20 bucks an hour, my $450 service call. That's like, I really suck at math, but 20 plus hours of their time just to pay me to come out, spend like 3 hours in their yard welding the fender on their trailer or whatever. And so to them, it seems like a lot. Really, it's probably more like 30 or 40 hours once you figure in the taxes they have to pay. So, I can completely understand why. My advice when people sort of hassle you about whatever your minimum is start off being nice to them, because like I said, a lot of people, that's probably what they make in a week or more. So, and they've never had to pay for stuff like this. They didn't spend years of their life in an apprenticeship sweeping floors and doing crap work somewhere. They haven't had to overcome this. They just work an office job or whatever. They go home at the end of the day. Inherently, there's nothing wrong with that. But to them, like I said, it's a huge amount of money, and they can't grasp it because they've never really probably even thought about it. So you say, if somebody calls me and they're like, hey man, I need you to come weld the fender on my trailer or whatever, I try to be nice and be like, all right, yeah, man, I really appreciate you thinking of me, but this isn't really the kind of thing we do. We do a lot more commercial, industrial, agricultural type stuff. Look, guy, I'd love to. It sounds like a nice job. Nothing against you personally, but if I drive out there, it's going to take me like half the day. Welding the fender back on this thing is seriously like a $50 job. If I come out there and do this and charge you $50 for it, that's going to shoot half or 2/3 of my day at a bare minimum. I got to make a living here. There's not enough money in this for me to be interested in. And most people, they'll say, all right, yeah, I guess it would take a while. Yeah, all right, whatever, sorry about that. Sometimes you can make things work out, or you say, but look, you stop by my shop, you got $100 cash, just park your trailer in my yard, I'll get to it, between 2 jobs next Tuesday and Thursday or whatever, I'll make it work. Sometimes that's good. Usually though, you can't count on that sort of thing working out. But just be nice to him. Try to help him understand that this is just too small for the kinds of things you do. You're not going to make any money if you go spend half your day doing this thing. Sorry. If you need something else, call me later. Sometimes these people will actually come through. If the person says, all right, well, hey, now I know a welder, maybe I'll need something, I'm going to keep his card. Then, a month or 3 years down the road, he'll be at work one day and a machine breaks or whatever. You're like, oh, we need this weld. We don't have time to wait for a replacement. Friggin' company wants 2 friggin' weeks for this part to get here. You say, hey, I remember, like a year or two ago, I called this guy. Let me see if I can find his card. He wouldn't mess with my trailer fender, but he seemed nice enough. I bet he would do this. Then you might actually get a worthwhile call about it. That's what you can hope for. The reality is there are some people who will not, they'll basically just badger you and beat you over the head with their request for you to do whatever what I would refer to as a BS job is, and they will not let it go. Avoid these people at all costs. They'll say, oh, guy, look, this only gonna take you 20, 30 minutes. Can't you just do it on your way home from something else? Heard it or it's a really easy job. It's hardly even gonna take any effort on your part. These people, what they're saying, if they won't let it go, if you talk to them and explain things and they just keep going, they're not saying, hey buddy, will you please come out weld my stuff? They're saying, I don't give you or your rules or why you do things the way you do or the way you've chosen to make a livelihood for yourself. You're a friggin' welder. This needs to be welded. You need to get out here and weld this thing on my time. This is like 30 friggin' bucks. I'll give you cash. What's the problem? Get out here and do this. And these people, these are always the problem people, the ones who will not accept your rules, especially if you've made an effort to explain them nicely to them. Every single time I have done a job for these people, I have regretted it. It has come back to bite me in the rear end, and I wish that I had never made an exception to my rules. And it was a good reminder of why now I absolutely do not make an exception to my rules whatsoever. With the exception, I know, but if like a friend or a family member or a relative needs something, I'll probably just do it for free or do it, as a favor. Look, I'm going out of town next week. If my neighbor needs something, just let my dog out, once or twice a day. I'll be gone for 2 days. Oh, okay, this is great. Well, everybody's happy. But for any type of paying work, no exceptions, period. And this is why. Let's see, what else? Speaking of the whole no exceptions thing, a concept that generally sounds kind of cold to people outside the world of business is the fact that your time is worth money even if nothing is produced by it. Obviously, not through any fault of your own. Let me give you an example of this. Probably about 6 weeks or so ago, I got a phone call. It was a referral job. I didn't know this company. I've never worked with them before. But they said, hey, we're putting in a type of commercial building. I don't want to give too much information here. Will you come out here and weld this one thing? It was just a bracket, like an angle iron bracket I had to make. I think it supported an air conditioner unit or whatever. Here comes the helicopter. I don't know if you guys can hear this on my audio. But, it was a really small job. And I started in with my pitch and like, look, you guys are like 2 full hours away from me. Anything further than a couple towns away, I don't charge a service call fee. I charge $2 a mile there, $2 a mile back, 3 or 5 hour minimum. And they, to my kind of surprise, they said, all right, look, whatever, we got to get this thing done. If you can do it like tomorrow or something, sure, we'll pay you for it. No problem. It's like, all right, whatever. So I'll see you then, right? So I go out there and man, this thing is a fluster cluck and a half. I don't generally like to talk people or things down, but if there's sort of an educational reason to, like this video, within reason, I'm willing to. This thing, man, I was sitting around waiting on someone to like show me what the heck was supposed to go on, and because the person I talked to obviously wasn't there, he left someone in charge who had no idea I was even coming. So I'm sitting around trying to wait on this. This guy comes up. He seems like a nice guy. And I start talking to him. And it's his building. And he's like, yeah, they were supposed to have this done like 4 months ago. And they're still building like the rough structure itself, let alone finishing it or you're doing anything on the inside. And I'm like, oh, that sucks. I'm talking to him. And then there's these other contractors there. I guess they were sort of supposed to be in charge of the site. These guys, man, they had this old van beat to crap. I remember that they needed to sawzall a hole in something, and they didn't bring their sawzall for whatever reason that day. So I guess felt somewhat pitiful for him and let him use mine, and they're up there beating on this thing, tearing blades up, which I build the company for and everything. And man, and they needed an angle grinder for something. They opened the door of their van and it is solid trash, like not even building. We're talking like empty boxes and packing materials all the way to the top. little dude rummages around in there, pulls out an angle grinder. There's no plug on the end, so then they got to rummage around, try to find the plug. It was a complete and total mess. It was so much of a mess that I invested like 2-3 hours driving out there. I don't remember what time I told him I'd be there, but I was there. It was the agreed upon time. It was like 1 PM or something. I stand there for like 3 full hours trying to get what's going on out of this person who doesn't know, trying to get these contractors to help me figure this out. Nobody left any plans. Nobody sent me anything. Complete and total mess. Finally, at about 5 o'clock, these other contractors are like, well, we're leaving. What do you mean we're leaving? We have to get the... Nope, it's 5 o'clock. We're going home. What am I supposed to do? I don't know. We're locking up. We have the keys. Just call whoever. This person I've been talking to on the phone is like, all right, whatever. So I call him and tell him, or no, I texted him and tell him what happens because I knew this was probably going to get messy. And if it did, I wanted everything in writing. So I'm like, hey, so-and-so's not out here. Nobody knows what's going on. I spent all this time driving out here. I lent these people tools, whatever. What's going on? This is a lot of time. Like I said, I'm charging you guys to come out here. And this person was nice enough about it. It's like, yeah, we've had some issues, with all this stuff. Just email me your invoice or whatever, and we'll take care of it. And to their credit, the company did. The way they took care of it is they fired the other contractors, which evidently I guess we're going to do anyway. It's not like I spilled the beans on them. They fired the other contractors. They fired the person I was talking to. There's some other circumstances there, which I didn't ask, but I found out about anyway, which sort of expounded why they probably did that. And I go out there the next day. There's one of the higher ups from the company, large corporation. A lot of people in DFW have probably heard of them. This guy works in the office. Like I said, he's like third from the top in the entire company. He's running things like a watch. He's like, all right, this is what we need. You need to take this material. We need it exactly like that. Yeah. No, okay. Look, just use that ladder. I'm going to tell these guys to move, but I only have like 6 minutes because we're getting the delivery of something or other coming. This guy was on top of his game, and I weld the thing, go home. But the long and short of this, and why I'm telling you guys this now, is because that first day I was there, that was like a $500+ invoice. I drove clear across to the opposite side of the Metroplex and back at $2 a mile, and then spent 3 hours just dealing with nothing, essentially, loaning these idiots tools, trying to figure out what was going on. People that were supposed to be there weren't there. Nobody left plans. Nobody had a clue. But this was like a $500+ invoice. And here's the deal. I know this sounds, hey, do not bark at that dog. Yeah, I know. You try to be a good boy. Go lay down. Daddy's ranting about stuff on the internet. Good dog. All right. So here's the thing. Unless something is directly your fault, which is the reason why it didn't get done, that's just too bad. And I don't mean to sound cold, but when you go to work, if you work a day job or something, you expect to be paid. If there's reasons outside your boss's control why his company didn't make any money that day, you still expect your hourly wage or whatever. It's exactly the same for this. I know a guy who also does a lot of mobile work, and he said one time he got out on a job, and this guy there is talking to him. He's like, hey, dude, you want to see the sick new motorcycle or dirt bike or whatever that I just bought? And he's like, yeah, guy, look, I'll be honest with you. I'd love to see it, but I'm here to make money. You can show me if you want, but this time is going on your bill. And that's the reality of it. Here's the thing. If you mess something up or you cause some delay or something, definitely bend over backwards to make it right with the people. But aside from that, you're working to make money. You charge this is another thing I'll preface. This is one reason why I charge hourly and I don't bid things by the job, because there's just too much that can go wrong. Even if not much goes wrong, but it turns out they need material they didn't tell you to bring. Well, now this job you bid $300 for or something, which was on the low end because it was supposed to be easy. Now you have to spend 2 hours driving to the steel yard and back. Who's going to pay you for that? And if they just straight up refuse to pay you any extra for this, which some people will, then now your 3-hour job, which was 5 hours with the trip, is 7 hours for $300. Yeah, no, I'm not doing that. But this is why I charge hourly for pretty much everything. I don't think I've ever done a single mobile job where I charged by the job, and very, very little that comes through the shop is that way. But, like I said, to the average person, That sounds cold. That sounds excessive, perhaps, and sometimes it will be. If you're, if you're working for like a small family business or a family farm or something, you can tell things are tight. Perhaps there's a legitimate reason beyond sheer incompetence and stupidity why nothing got done. Perhaps you give them a break. I'm not saying don't, but like I said, in the case of this particular customer, literally nothing I could have done. I couldn't reach my client on the phone. The person I was talking to, person wasn't there. No plans. Idiot contractors that it's a miracle they hadn't fallen off the building and killed themselves. That's probably a little bit on the edgy side, but really that's the best way I can think of to describe that entire job. And that's, like I said, the joke is with mechanics, you do not pay a mechanic to fix your car. You pay a mechanic to work on your car. It's the exact same kind of thing. That job, what I was charging them for wasn't practically nothing. What I'm charging them for is an entire day of my life, and then like to 160 or 200 miles round trip. No, it wasn't that. Felt like it. I think it was probably like 60, 80 miles and 3-4 billable hours there, whatever it was. Took a while though, because that's mileage in city traffic. But whatever the case, that's beside the point. Like I said, you're there charging for your time, and this is the best way I can think of to bill things. Now, someone else I know has dealt with some people who seem to have issues with this. They'll be like, look, man, I shouldn't have to pay you to go get supplies for this, which I didn't tell you to bring. He'll be just straight up cold and be like, all right, well, I'll sit here and do nothing and you can go run and get them then. Or I'm leaving and you can pay me for what I've done so far. Here's the thing. You kind of have to be really firm with a lot of aspects in business. It's no reason to be a dick, especially to average people who, like I said, that $450 minimum, that's what they make in a week, and they don't understand. So, you be nice to them. But the moment somebody starts trying to yank your chain and get you to work for essentially nothing, or, tries to screw you out of whatever, just, cold as can be, no, there's no need for insults. There's no need for trying to fight them or whatever. Just be, just straight up with them. Like, look, guy, I charge hourly. It's too friggin' bad. I will say, probably about 1 in 5 or 1 in 6 jobs I go to involves paid time doing nothing. That job was the biggest example I've ever had of get there, do pretty much nothing other than loan out a couple tools and make some phone calls and go home. That one was probably the worst I've ever had in that respect. But a lot of the time it's very common where, like on a construction job one time I was at, they were waiting for a crane to come move some beams and I had to weld the beams in place. Crane was late, or it got stuck in traffic, or it wouldn't start that morning, whatever the case. It was one of those like mobile crane trucks. And so, that was like a good couple hours I sat there and did nothing. Another time somebody was supposed to go and pick up some supplies, and they, it was one of the helpers for this construction company I was working for. They had some type of aversion to using the GPS on their phone, which it had, by the way, and they didn't know the area very well. So instead of it just being like a normal person and putting in their phone that they need to go to whatever store to pick this thing up, they said, hey, we'll be gone for 20 minutes. Here's like 30 minutes worth of work. We'll be back. And they just weren't back for like 2 solid hours. So that was like a hour and a half paid lunch break or whatever for me. And you say, oh, that's sweet. And to a point, it is. On 1 in 5 or 1 in 6 jobs, it's nice if you get like 30 minutes paid. You can take off because the concrete guys aren't here to drill the holes. The crane's running late, whatever the situation is. But they're like on that job, sounds sweet. Oh, you made $500, you're 480 or whatever it was, driving to the other side of the Metroplex doing nothing and driving back. Yeah, but I could have made more than that and not put any miles on my truck and not burned any gas if I'd just done work in the shop that day. So yes, but not really. The other thing about minimums, and this is an important point to make, and it is kind of obvious, but it's still best to clarify it with some customers if you think there'll be any issues. My minimum, $450. This is not, I'm charging you $450 and $200 of that is steel I picked up and then like $80 in sales tax or something. This is, I need to make $450 today because this is going to shoot my entire day. And unless I make $450 for this entire day of my life and wear and tear on my equipment, I'm not doing this. So like I said, some people might theoretically, I haven't personally had an issue with this, but some people might theoretically try to give you that, like, oh, dude, I'm giving you $450. You get to put this money in the bank at the end of the day. And like I said, $200 of that is steel and in taxes and all this other stuff. So you're not really making hardly anything on that. So let's see, what the heck else did I want to talk about in this video? I think that was probably about most of it. Like I said, I know this sounds like a lot, especially to anybody who's not involved in any sort of business thing, and that's fine. But you know, this is the way the business world works. If you think it shouldn't, then next time you need an electrician or a plumber to come out and they tell you they have a $300 minimum, you can try to be like, oh, well, you know, I bet I could do this in like 30 minutes. You know, why don't I just give you some, yeah, and see how far that gets you, because this is the way the world works. And if you actually want to make money with what you're doing, there's a reason why pretty much every contractor ever has a set of rules similar to this, or they wish that they did. So like I said, I don't mean to sound cold, I don't mean to sound judgmental, but ultimately you're out to make money, and this is, sometimes there have to be rules and guidelines for this. One other thing I'll mention is, whatever you do, do not threaten people to take them to court over things, because that will, in most cases, just completely shut them down. Be like, yeah, let's see what the judge says. You know, that sort of thing. You do not want to take people to court. I know some people saying this will be like, oh, he's trying to be, you know, take the moral high ground. Really, it's because it's going to shoot like days of your entire life. For what? Like a disputed $500 charge or something? Is that really worth like $200 in court fees? And then like I said, 2, 3, even 1 days of your entire life. And then even then, there's no guarantees that they'll award you a judgment in your favor. And here's the other thing. Most small claims court type of cases, that's what happens. The judge doesn't say, you pull out your wallet, count out $329 and give it to that man there. They say, all right, we're going to award a judgment against you of X number of dollars. And if the person just says, I'm not paying that, it's going to cost you a lot of money to get this collected on. And a lot of people just don't have anything to take in the first place. And yes, I say this from experience. I've dealt with a small claims case or two related to some rental stuff I was involved in before I bought my own house, which was one of the main reasons why I was very thankful to pay money to own my own house. But that's a story for another day. But like I said, try not to get courts involved with stuff like this, because what's going to happen is, what's most likely, quite frankly, is you'll never actually see your money. I'll tell you another story, and normally I don't like to talk too much personal stuff. I had a roommate who I was splitting a house with. They walked out, basically. They had some incredibly stupid, life-changing circumstance. I can't remember exactly what it was. This was several years ago, but whatever the case, they just said, hey, I got to move to this other town. Have a nice life, basically, and that was it. So then I was paying like twice as much in rent. I had the brilliant idea that I would use our wonderful justice system to try to get, I don't know, it's like $5,000 or $6,000 or whatever, because this was like half of a year's rent at a house in Austin, Texas, which is expensive. This was a dumpy house in the outskirts of town. It's like $1,400 a month. And so what happened is, I go to I think it was the Travis County, might have been Austin, whatever, but wherever you go to start a small claims case, I paid him like $100 or $200. They then did nothing. And I mean, literally did nothing. They did not serve this person, which I paid them to. I don't think they ever made any attempt to contact them. And then I got a very friendly letter from them about a year later, which said, hey, nothing ever got done on this case, so we're just dropping it unless you give us a bunch of money to keep it open in the system. And like I said, the reason nothing ever happened, they never even bothered to serve this person, which I paid him to, let alone this thing would see the inside of a courtroom. And like I said, this was $5,000 or $6,000. Never mind, $300 that some, pain in the rear end, customer who wanted his hunk of junk trailer fixed or whatever. But I guess what I should say is, if you're thinking about threatening people with court stuff, look up the process in your specific state, because here in Texas, like I said, a lot of people just don't have much to take. There's a whole list of things which the state can't actually take to pay a judgment. Like some of them make sense, others not so much, but this is getting really off topic now. So I'll say, when somebody calls you out for the first time, make sure you tell them, and emphasize to them, don't, beat them over the head with it or whatever. Make sure they understand this is going to take you about 5 hours. You're charging them X number of dollars if it's relatively close, or if it's not, $2 a mile or whatever it is for you. You're charging them to come out here. You're charging them this much hourly, and that's that. You expect to be paid, if possible. I like to get a check from people at the end of the day, especially new people. Large companies, however, they usually like to send it, through whatever accounting thing they have, so you won't actually get paid for a while. If it's not a large company like this, however, I'm just straight up not willing to. If it's an individual or like a mom and pop shop, you pay me when I'm done. I'm not messing with this, because there's a good chance I'm never going to see this money if I do. But like I said, you have to expect a lot of the time not to get this, because if it's a huge company, this is just how they work. At least in most cases. Perhaps you can get them to make an exception, but don't count on it. Talk to them about this stuff. Make sure your expectations are clear with everything. You expect when you get there this day, you know, this and that's going to be ready. You expect that, you know, and whatever. And make sure if there's unforeseen circumstances outside of your control, you know what, that's just too bad. Because like I said, otherwise it's not really fair for you to spend an entire day of your life. In my case, on that one job, driving across the entire Metroplex and sitting on my rear end and dealing with people who can't even bring their own tools. But, you know, in your case, it's going to be whatever. So yeah, let's see. Minimum, stick to the minimum, avoid court. I guess that's probably about the most which I would have to say on this. I find that most people are very nice to deal with. I really haven't had that many of these interesting cases, but the ones that I have, they've all sort of really bit me in the rear end, and now you guys sort of get an interesting story out of it, and hopefully this will save you guys from some of the headaches which I went through. Just try to treat people the way you'd prefer if they treat you. Try to make sure that everyone understands what's expected from the other person in this deal. And like I said, most people, they're very nice, they're very genuine, they just want their stuff built, fixed, whatever the case is. I've talked to people who are like, oh, you know, this customer, they screw me over all the time. Like, what the heck are you still selling them services for? Do you really think next time it's going to be different? No. You know, instead of dicking with them, print up some flyers and hand them out to local businesses or whatever and hope that somebody gets you stuff. So, yeah, that's that. The other thing, the only other business tip I could add for those of you guys who've actually listened to all this rambling thus far, you deserve some type of reward. Try to make your stuff look professional. I mean, your equipment itself, it has to look good, not just the work, of course. You know, this trailer here, I'll put it this way. I don't advertise on Craigslist because it's you know, there's a lot of perfectly sane, competent people on there, but man, if I had $1 for every time somebody wasted my time, tried to, you know, they were a complete tire kicker, they just want quotes so they can justify to their wife buying an $800 welder, or, you know, they want to trade me a bunch of stupid stuff like a John boat with no motor that leaks, or like an 82 Chevy with like 2 doors missing and no engine, all this crap that I don't want and I can't use to pay bills, and that's why I'm out here in the first place. You know, I would probably I know for a fact I'd have more money if I'd done these jobs for. So like I said, I personally don't advertise on Craigslist, but I have seen on there, and I have seen in real life, a lot of rigs which aren't that inspiring, but could be for not much money and only a little bit of elbow grease. Like, for instance, I saw the other day someone had a welding truck with like no tailgate and a rusty, beat to crap, like side smashed in. I think it was like an old Miller Bobcat or something, ratchet strapped into it with like some bottles rolled. Whatever your thing looks like, it does not have to be fancy. It does not have to cost a lot of money. It has to look good. If this person, you know, completely leaving aside even painting their truck or something, you know, if they took the body panels off of their Miller welder and they hosed them down with some Rust-Oleum spray cans, it would cost them like $10. If they were willing to spend 20, they could buy some new decals on eBay too. You know, things like this, you have to look professional. This, I've built it, and I don't want to toot my own horn, but this is supposed to look like a professional welder. It's all the same color except for the air compressor, which I didn't paint because it would look terrible unless I took off the pump and the engine, and all this stuff is going to be a pain. So the point is, this whole trailer is 2 colors instead of like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 colors. It is 2 instead of 5. So I'm very happy with that, or 4, depending on which box you look at. But whatever the case, it doesn't really matter. What matters is it's all the same color. It's fairly straight. If you're going to be getting going in welding, you know, like I said, friggin' Rust-Oleum paint can job on your welder so it doesn't look like you pulled it out of the junkyard the day before. You know, tie your stuff down properly. You know, don't just leave like random tools and nuts and bolts and scrap metal kicking around in your bed. Just make an effort to look presentable. You don't have to spend $70,000 on a truck and put like one of those nice Lincoln stainless steel shell welders on the back of it. It has to look clean. It has to look well taken care of, and you have to look like you're not some, like, you know, illiterate Bubba who's showing up and trying to charge $90 an hour to this company or whatever. I mean, that probably I probably took that rant a little further than I need to, but the point is, make an effort so your things look respectable. It's really not even that hard. Little spray paint trip to the car wash with a few quarters, your whole rig will look so much better. But Yeah, like I said, I don't make this video to sound cold. I don't make it to sound judgmental. I realize it probably was, but I really am making this for all the people that are asking me about getting into welding, because this is all stuff which I've had to learn the hard way, or I got this knowledge passed down to me, and I'm very thankful for it, so I'm trying to pass it along to you guys. Like I said, that really is my intention making this. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. I hope it has helped you, and I really hope it saved you some headaches, because when things get ugly, they can get really ugly really fast. And hope all this makes sense. Thanks for watching. Work hard, stay safe, don't do anything which is gonna compromise your safety. That's fine. One last rambling point. That's really the main thing, because if you lose an arm or something, this is going to cost you all the money which you would have otherwise made, or a lot of it at least, in your career. Here's a parallel for fellow youngsters like myself that have played a lot of video games. I've played some Arma here and there, occasionally with fans, unintentionally. One day I'm just in a public lobby, and this guy goes, "You sound a lot like this guy watching YouTube that makes welding videos." I'm like, yeah, funny thing about that. Yeah, it was really cool. But one of the other video games I used to play, you could, among other things, it was like, what's the term for this? Like a huge third-person strategy game themed in the Cold War. I promise you guys I'm going somewhere with this. But one of its features is you could purchase aircraft and you could use them. I learned fairly early on that if you send your aircraft out, it really, in the grand scheme of things, doesn't really matter if they, if they destroy whatever unit or they get you however many points. What matters is that your aircraft come back. Because if they get shot down, then, not only does it cost you the loss of this aircraft, it costs you every single kill, every single point, whatever, every single strategic advantage which you could have used this aircraft to help you get later. And then, if the game doesn't go your way and your dudes are down there getting overrun, you can't call in this aircraft to come bail them out anymore, so you take more losses as well. This is what really costs you, not if if you send out your plane and it doesn't blow anything up. That's not that big a deal. You have to retain the aircraft and protect them and not gamble them doing stupid things. This is kind of how I view personal safety. I know this sounds kind of strange and probably kind of funny, but like I said, I'm going somewhere with this. If you actually try to preserve yourself in your physical integrity and your senses and your skin and all this stuff, you're not going to have lost income. Never mind all the pain and suffering and everything else. A lot of people are willing to put that on the back burner just to get the job done. But you think about, you might not be able to get the job done someday, if you cut off a finger or an arm, or you lose an eye, or you're deaf, or whatever the case. You really have to think long term with this stuff. That's the only other piece of advice I could give, because I don't know, people tell me I'm decent enough with safety equipment, but I've talked to so many people in the field who have said, man, I wish I wore this or that piece of gear when I was younger, because, now I'm suffering in this way. A lot of people in my family personally have a bad back, which kind of goes through our genes. And also, all the farming in the family probably doesn't help with that. But several of my relatives have back problems. I do not envy them for this. It hurts them going through the day. They're very limited in the things they can do. This is what really hurts them, saying, I'm going to buy something, like in my case, I'm going to buy a tractor or several to lift stuff and move stuff around here. That's a one-time expense. That's not a big deal. If I completely wrecked my back, that's going to interfere with me every single day for the rest of my life. So this is sort of the other mentality I'd like to add in there. Like I said, ultra rambly long video, which is longer than I expected, which is kind of the norm, as my regular viewers know. I hope this video has helped you. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe for more. And like I said, just stuff which either I learned the hard way or someone was nice enough to tell me, so I'm going to pass along to you guys. Thanks for watching. Cheers.